Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to Mobile Game Development 101, Unveiling the Essentials. I'm Giraud, CEO of Hitseeker, and I'm joined today by Connor Taylor and Gabriel Tanasic from Kwalee. Connor, Gabriel, how are you today?
Doing very well, thank you. How about yourself?
Cool. Before we jump in, big thanks to Tom Bromwich for the previous talk, Forging Your Career in Gaming. For everyone watching us, we have a chat available on Whova. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them there. And we have a Q&A session at the end of this talk where we'll go over a few ones and try our best to answer them. Let's start with introduction. Maybe Connor, you can start and tell us a bit about what you do at Kwalee and what does this role entail?
For sure. So yeah, I'm a lead programmer here at Kwalee on the gameplay team and on the hybrid development team. So we focus on making the hybrid casual games on mobile. Yeah, I sort of manage day-to-day tasks, making projects. I also help some of the other teams with what they're doing. Generally just have fun, write code, and try not to break anything. It's sort of my go-to.
Sounds cool. And Gabriel, what about you? What do you do at Kwalee?
Yeah, I'm also in the hybrid team as the design director, taking care of our designers and making sure from the design side the games are as good as they can be.
Okay, so from one hand, Gabriel, you design the games, imagine the concepts and the rules of the games, and Connor, you're on the technical side of things, coding the games and making sure they work as Gabriel intended, I guess.
Yep.
Cool. I have a bit of a background in technical programming and in game design, so I will be able to provide a bit of feedback. I've worked on several games at Hitseeker and before that. So let's jump right in. The big talk here, the big subject is hybrid casual, bigger games, deeper gameplay. We've learned a lot from hyper casual. I guess we'll start with the first question. Hybrid casual, what changed from hyper casual? What are the main differences and maybe the main challenges from going to hybrid?
Maybe start from a design point of view. We can then explore it, like what it means for you guys on the programming side. But from a design point of view, it basically means deeper work. So the definition of hybrid casual games, is debatable. Everybody has sort of their own, but I think sort of the agreed upon definition might be that there is some kind of hyper casual core in the sense that it's accessible, that it's also marketable, right? That's important. So the CPIs are not too high, but there are deeper systems behind it, meta layers, deeper monetization, engagement that goes beyond just a few days, but where you actually retain players for weeks, hopefully even months. And that, in order to do that, you need to just design the core gameplay as well, all the systems that sort of feed into it much more methodically, I would say. And that's definitely the big challenge. I don't know if you want me to go a little bit into detail what that actually means in
sure. Let's start.
terms.
How do you design hybrid casual gameplay? How do you approach a new concept, and how do you select a game idea to start on? Because as designers, we have a lot of ideas. We come up with new ideas and new game concepts all the time. How do you decide which one you will focus on, and then what's the main focus once you decide to flesh it out and make sure the concept is viable for hybrid casual?
The million-dollar question, isn't it? Yeah, so I would say there is no one size, there is no one solution, right? There's many paths that lead to success. I like very much focusing on market research. Like I do as much market research work as I do design work, constantly tracking the market, using the tools at our disposal to sort of see where the market could be in a couple of months from now, or even further than that, and trying to sort of adapt to that. And that guides then my brainstorming and my exploration of game ideas. I think the best game idea in the world is sort of pointless if there's nobody in the market who wants to play it. So that's sort of the number one thing I do, the first thing I do, and then once I'm sort of narrowing down on some game ideas, I'm looking at them I'm looking for markers, certain markers that sort of tell me, hey, this could be hybrid casual, i.e., something that grabs the players for longer, that also allows players, allows us to monetize players better. And these markers can be, depending on the game. So for example, for puzzle games, a good marker I would say is, can I add boosters in this game? Because more boosters are an important thing, how you can monetize players. And if you can add boosters to a puzzle game, that's a big plus. Doesn't mean that there aren't hybrid casual games that don't have puzzle games that don't have boosters. Like all these are just markers, but not necessarily like harsh rules. Another thing, if you're more on the, let's say you're making more of a game where it's an action game, some kind of shooter, I think power progression mechanics are a brilliant way to be able to monetize players, right? Because then the meta systems, whatever upgrade system you want to build, be it a card collection system a la Clash of Clans or anything like that, writes itself almost. So these are sort of the markers I'm looking for. But yeah, I'm curious to hear from you, Louis. Like, have you what are you looking for when you have also a bunch of experience with hybrid casual games?
Definitely. So one thing that we really like to see at Hitseeker is making sure that we can plug content in the game in various systems. So in hyper casual, usually when you try to add content or add longevity to your game, you add levels and you add everything in a kind of singular linear progression, trying to make it longer and have more things to play at the end of what you've already made. But with hybrid casual, generally, because we build bigger games with deeper systems and more intrinsically linked different systems, we are able to plug content in separate systems, and then the interaction together of all the systems will make the game a lot more deeper, a lot more rich in terms of contents and in terms of everything that the player can experience in specific instances. But yeah, I'm curious to Connor, like making bigger games, making more systems and more a bigger basis for gameplay and for depth. How does this translate in technical terms? Do you approach the programming and the proof of concept prototyping of hybrid casual games differently that you did maybe with hyper casual?
Definitely. I mean, hyper casual, a lot of times things were grounded on a very simple idea and you could expand upon that. So it was very quick to get in, very quick to prototype. Whereas with hybrid casual, obviously we want to keep players for a lot longer. We have a lot of meta systems, as you both said. So we want to make sure, firstly, we plan everything to the finest detail if we can. UML documentation, whenever we can there. Just so then when it comes to, down the line, if we thought about maybe an upgrade system or a booster system, we're thinking about that before we've even implemented it. We've got things ready on the sideline to go in for that, just so then we can slot things in really nicely. It's all well and good getting things out super quick, getting them done. But with hybrid, you need to make sure your code and your structure of your project is expandable, like always the case. But with this, especially when it comes to things like live ops and events and different things like that, you really want to be able to have a nice solid foundation to expand upon. So whereas hyper casual, sometimes you can get away with a bit of hacky stuff here and there, when a crunch comes. The hybrid, you can't really afford to have that as much because you're really going to be shooting yourself in the foot down the line. So definitely more planning and just trying to make sure you look ahead always.
And is it something that you guys will discuss together, designers and programmers? Will you sit at a table together and say, all right, these are the systems that we are planning for the game. This is the direction this could go in, or this can be added later. And then, Connor, you may be able to maybe plan the architecture of the game and of the technical aspect of the code better to accommodate the changes that will come later in the game down the line of development.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we have some lovely designers who really plan out a lot. They document everything, which is great. And they even document features that, may not be in this current sprint. So even if we know it's not here, we know this being, thought about, we know it's being planned, something's in the pipeline there. So we can have an open conversation. Everyone always is willing to talk about these things, which is great. And just sort of hash things out, make sure you go, okay, are you thinking about boosters down the line? Yes. Okay, cool. We'll make sure we sort of keep the system ready. We won't add them in yet, won't waste time, but we'll make sure we're ready for when we need them. And that back and forth is very key. And if you don't have that, you're going to end up with these two roads going very different directions. So sort of checking in daily, even checking in on small questions, is this booster really going to be, is worth it? What about the cost? Has the economy even thought about it yet? Really simple questions like this can really help spur other conversations as well. So you end up with this really nice long plan of what could be coming. And things do change, that's fine. But being able to know what we can add instead of what's coming, if you know what I mean, what's being dropped in your head is way better, way better.
It makes it a bit challenging for us to see what we might need in the future. There have been a lot of instances lately where I had to sort of tell designers, hey, maybe you should tell the programmer that we might want to build this at some point in the future, sprint in the future, just so they're prepared and they prepare their architecture accordingly, so we don't have to refactor the whole game once we want to add that. So yeah, we need that. That's the challenge from our side, having that crystal ball to see what would be possible. Of course, you need to be still, economical about it. You don't want to like just ask for every possibility.
Yeah.
That's madness as well. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a very fine balance to find between like planning everything that can change and move during the development cycle of the game. Sometimes you will try feature or try something that the designer intended, and it's not as fun on your phone, but it was in your head. And so you have to kind of adjust the course of the development. And so, yeah, there's a fine line to toe between preparing for everything in the technical aspect, in the code, preparing for every change and every eventuality, and designing super fast for just the first draft of the feature. That's one of my special moves at Hitseeker, like coming into a meeting and telling the developers, we need to change this whole system, and they hate it. But we managed to do it because we've built everything as robust as we can. It also means that it can be swapped in and swapped out and changed out more easily that it would be in hyper casual, where everything is acted together. And if you want to change a specific side of your gameplay, the whole code may collapse because it was based on a very specific approach. Super interesting. What makes a gameplay or a core loop deeper than hyper casual? So we mentioned systems. How do you know that your game has enough depth, and how do you know that your core loop is ready to be developed? Or maybe Gabriel, when do you decide, okay, my idea is fleshed out enough, I will send it along to Connor and we will sit together and start working on it?
We have actually a few steps in between of various stakeholders sort of weighing in from product management, sort of saying where could they take it, and what is the monetization potential, et cetera, et cetera. But so the way we evaluate these ideas early on is to play them in our heads, and not just play them like the core game mechanic, but also sort of like imagine, what does level 200 look like? It's a question I like to ask to designers often, like, what does level 200 look like in this game? And if it's just more of the same, that doesn't necessarily mean that the game is not viable. We have seen hybrid casual games that don't really add much later on, but they're rare and far between. So you better have a good justification if you're going to struggle to add variety through or variations of the existing systems or new systems. So I would liken it to I like to use the metaphor of the surface area. Like, how much surface area does your game concept have where you can attach different things? And the wider that surface area is, the better, I would say. And an easy way to test it is just like, hey, okay, let's play through. If we were to add this kind of live event to this game, would that be possible? And if the answer is no, again, that doesn't mean the idea is not viable, but it sparks discussion and a debate. So we are basically looking for these indicators that this could be indeed something that's going to grab players for a longer time, keep their interest, and as well allow us to monetize them. Because, of course, we are monetizing partially through ads and through interstitials. And interstitial monetization is a function of time, basically. The longer they play, the more ints they see, the more money you make. Very simple. But unlike hyper casual, you cannot be too aggressive with ints. So you have to you have to find ways how to make them watch more RVs, rewarded videos, or even become a payer and pay for in-app purchases. So you might have the most engaging game in the world. If it doesn't have these hooks, these monetization hooks, if the core gameplay doesn't have these hooks where you can add monetization, you might actually struggle to get the kind of revenue you might want from a hybrid casual game.
Yeah, I really like these two approaches. Like the question of what does your level 200 look like? It's something we ask ourselves constantly. We divide the game in three phases. There's like the first time user experience. So what will you play the first time in the first 8 seconds where you open the game? What will the experience be? And how do we teach the player all the mechanics we've created in the game? And then we have what we call cruise control, which is like when you're progressing the main game, going through levels, getting more and more features, experiencing the full game basically. And then what we call the end game, once you've reached the kind of end of the design progression, and we plug in procedural systems, making sure that you can still have excuses to play the gameplay and to go enjoy the game and what we created with like new challenges, new combinations of the systems I mentioned earlier. And maybe Connor, you can touch a bit upon this, like how important is procedural generation when developing hybrid casual games? What's the kind of balance between procedural and handcrafted design for these types of games on your experience?
So I think it's always good to have a mix of both. And this will always come between design and us. I know we will discuss what needs to be done, but being able to handcraft levels is always very important. The first time experience, you need to make sure it is very handcrafted, very nice to play, easy to understand. But then maybe let's try and make design's life easier. Let's have some tools where they can sort of do a mix of both. They can type in some values, which can help procedurally generate these levels for X. We've done things in the past where we, as you said, we have content up to level Y. After that point, it will just be procedural based on a set values that we have. It makes life a lot easier for us, and I think for also the designer. It does come with its own challenges. These things can be difficult to test and keep an eye on in terms of bugs and difficulty and things like that. So we always have to have some sort of parameters there to play with, to adjust and have seeds or whatever you need to have. But I think having a mix of both is really the sweet spot because it helps production time. Also means you have a lot more content at your fingertips a lot quicker as well.
One thing we had to learn from coming from hyper casual is how important a level editor is, that it really needs to be convenient, stable, easy to use, so the designer can make levels quickly, but they are then also encouraged to experiment with the levels and try them out and find the fun in the levels. Whereas with hyper casual, often they were kind of put together with spit and duct tape because that's how it was, right? You needed to move quickly, you needed to release quickly, and good enough was good enough. But we had to learn, okay, no, we need to give the designer a proper level design tool so they can actually deliver also a lot of levels. That's the other thing that you need a lot of content if you want to retain players for weeks and weeks and weeks. You need to feed enough content there, and that is also something we had to learn. Another thing that I just wanted to sort of add something where we are collaborating very closely with programmers. It's what I call finding the toy, the core interaction. Sure, for a puzzle games, that can be simple tapping mechanics, drag and drop. One game we're working on at the moment, we're sort of experimenting with, has you're controlling a car. Okay. Which suddenly, it becomes way more complicated. You have physics to some extent. You're controlling it with the virtual joystick. That joystick needs to be calibrated right, like the sensitivity, the dead zone, how the behavior, what you're doing with your thumb on the screen, how does that translate to the object moving in world space? Those are challenges where design and programming need to work hand in hand through a very iterative approach. And I'm happy to say we have very good programmers who sort of intuitively understand what the designer wants, because it's sometimes difficult to put these things in words or sort of deconstruct them in like action items for a programmer. So we have this really nice approach of working side by side on finding or cracking the toy. And for example, one sort of tip I could give to aspiring developers is put a debug menu in your prototype builds, expose the crucial parameters in the debug menu, like the joystick sensitivity I mentioned, stuff like that. So you can change your settings on the fly and see which one you prefer. And then what we also like to do is actually sort of give these prototypes to first the design team and then even broader teams, even our friends and family, to see how they're getting on with it. Hey, do you prefer this setting or do you prefer this setting? And that can help us a lot nailing down sort of the core interactions you're doing in the game. Because if the core is not fun, if it's just sort of then everything downstream is sort of almost for nothing. You can have the best live ops strategy in the world, amazing, live events and hundreds of levels and all the bells and whistles. If your core is not fun, if the toy, as I like to call it, is not fun, you're already sort of on your back foot.
Yeah, completely agree. And piggyback on the idea of hiding a debug menu, like don't just put the small tinkering values like dead zones or things like that. At Hitseeker, we like to put the most things we can in this hidden menu, and sometimes we'll just play around and try to break the game with this. Like at first, we'll play test the game normally, do little adjustment to find the sweet spot, and then somebody will say, okay, try multiplying the number of enemies by 10 and the number of bullets in your magazine by 20, and the game completely shifts from one end to the other. And having most design configuration elements available in the build for everyone to test, we test the game with HR, with artists, with everyone. It allows us to find things that we may not have thought about during development. And sometimes it gives you a cool new idea to focus on for the rest of the development. And on the concept of like really fine-tuning the toy and the core, I think it's very important. And I'm curious to get the take of Connor on this, to play a lot of games. And as a developer, trying to understand how the game that you're playing has been coded, how the feature has been made, so that once you will try to do something similar, you have more experience trying to analyze games and features and thinking, oh, how would I make this work in my game, or how would I have coded this?
So yeah, for sure. So it's sort of jumping on the debug idea as well. I mean,
Yeah.
as programmers and a few other developers, sometimes we do get very comfortable just playing in our editor. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Definitely not. But get it on device, get playing it. There's so many things that feel different on device that you just won't know until you get it in your hands. So that's a big tip. Don't feel comfortable in editor, get it on device, you'll find issues straight away. Otherwise, yeah, playing games similar, playing similar games, playing competitor games, really important for every member of the team, not just design who, looking for ideas, but for us, as programmers, for artists, for me as a programmer. I can do some analysis on how quick their game is loading. We should be something similar. What's their APK size? A lot of numbers for a lot of time, but then also playing the game, feeling it. As Gabriel said, if it is a car game and I'm moving on a car around, how does this competitor game feel compared to ours? Is ours heavier? Is ours, you come up with these sort of weird things to try and describe that you can feed back to the designer. And even just playing these games gives you a better sense for what our game should be like. And then obviously we do more of these games, you learn from them and so on. But yeah, I cannot stress playing competitive games and similar games, just so you get a feel. And sometimes you'll find bugs and you can go, I need to look out for that. Let's make sure we don't have that in ours. We can be better. And you can sort of go from there. So definitely, yeah, getting hands-on, really important.
Yeah, I think one key takeaway is to like benchmark everything, try every game that you can, be it super similar to what you want to do. It's super important to know what player expect in terms of experience, in terms of controls, in terms of visual even. But even trying games that have nothing to do with yours, sometimes you can take an idea from a puzzle game and put it in an action game or things like that. And going from there, like playing all the games, benchmarking everything, I think there's a fine line between taking inspiration and what people can call copying our games. How do you make sure and how do you cope with like seeing a lot of games, be it on the App Store, there's everything has already been made in heavy quotes. Like, how do you take inspiration from what exists and make a new game, put your spin on it? Maybe Gabriel, how do you create a new game by taking inspiration from what exists without being just a copycat?
Yeah, so I think there is no shame in using other games as inspiration, as even a starting point, right? Like, why would you want to reinvent the wheel in certain aspects if you know that developer XYZ has spent, months and maybe even longer refining this feature, A/B testing it? Why not start there and then add on top of that, right? Like add your secret sauce to it. So I'm not opposed at all to the idea of using other games as a reference. In fact, I do encourage our designers to, like Connor mentioned, like play a lot of games. Like you should check the charts almost every day, see what's out there, download it, play it, dissect it, see what makes it tick. I like to tell the designers, if your phone is not full of games, you're not doing your job, right? like you need to constantly sort of keep a library for reference. But then, of course, like just being a copycat will get you nowhere. Like there's that's something that a lot of companies are out there are doing, and most of them are failing just because there's like the odd successful story of a game being sort of copied and still finding success doesn't mean that that's a viable strategy. So I would definitely recommend staying away from that. You need to sort of again, you can look at the market to sort of see what currently is in demand. Analyze these games, see what makes them tick, try to understand why certain features were designed a certain way, and then apply these learnings to your own design. Try to find ways how you can improve upon what you're seeing, but also maybe you can identify certain pain points that that players of these games might have that are not being addressed by the competitor games, and then you can sort of try to address these pain points and improve the user experience that way. There is also something to be said about being too original. I think in our space that can backfire. Like if you are completely, like if you're going completely in a new direction, making something that has never done before, it's first of all, I don't want to discourage that. I think it's amazing. Like this kind of creativity, I love to see it, but often often that can backfire in the sense that players just don't know what they're looking at, and it scares them off. And the closer we go sort of to a casual demographic, which is, a little bit more female than male, that is a little bit older on average, the closer we go to that demographic, the more we sort of need to adhere to certain norms and standards and established even like user experience patterns to make sure that players are going to be able to pick up your game, learn it quickly, and not be scared off in like the first couple of minutes because what they're seeing is just too alien, too weird for them. So I don't want to discourage innovation, not at all, far from it. But if you want to have commercial success, you better make sure you check your hypothesis. You really have your game play tested, give it to a wide range of players. Maybe even use services like Playtest Cloud, where you can actually automate some of that play testing to gather feedback to see, is this actually going to be viable for who my target demographic is? If you want to be pure artistic and auteur and indie, then that's fine as well. There's a place for that as well, right? There's still premium games for $1 or $2 that make money, or Apple Arcade. There's avenues for that as well. I'm not saying there isn't room for that, but in our space, be careful if you're going too far off the reservation, I would say.
Yeah, it's important for the casual audience to like have some familiarity. The more time you spend explaining new concepts, new controls, and new things to your players, and the more you risk losing them. And I like your approach of like going from something that already exists and is familiar to people, and then putting your own creative spin on it. It's one of the things that we love to do at Hitseeker. We play a lot of games on mobile and on PC and console. And one of my favorite things to do when I play is like, damn, I love this game, but why did they do this? Or why isn't there like, why am I not playing in a mecha suit? Why am I not having like thousands of enemies instead of 5? And that kind of gives us starting points of like, damn, I really would love to play this game, but with this specific change or this creative approach. And then once you start doing the game with your studio or with your resources or even yourself, you have to put your own spin on it. Even copying a game, you will end up with something a bit different because your way of doing things is your own. And then this cumulated with the new ideas that you bring in, this is where you create the real version of the game that is coming from you as a gamer and as a creator, I think. Connordy, was there something you wanted to add on this scope, or did we cover everything?
Completely agree. Yeah, no, all good.
And one thing I really I'm keen to get your take on is we talked about taking inspiration from existing concepts and existing game, but there's one other aspect that was a big challenge for us at Hitseeker and as a solo developer is, should I do everything myself, or should I invest or buy assets or even take free assets existing? Like, when you're at school, you learn to do almost everything yourself because it's super important to understand the concept and understand what you're dealing with to maybe do something more complex later. But when you're trying to start on the business side of things and making sure time is well spent, how do you balance like taking existing assets in terms of code, in terms of 3D assets? How do you go about this, Connor?
So, I mean, even at Kwalee, we've used asset packs, and we still do. If someone's invented the wheel and they're maintaining it and they're updating it, why should we reinvent the entire thing and then have to deal with bugs, etc., when we have someone there to do it? So yeah, definitely an advocate for asset packs. I think it can be overused, especially if you're sort of an indie developer. I think you can rely on them, especially if you're a solo programmer. You might just go, yeah, I'm just going to grab all these, and they might not be cohesive. You could be quite careful with that. But also, I guess on the flip side, from like an art point of view, with CVs and portfolios, try and get a fully made demo game. Add your art to that, right? It goes both ways. But from coding, asset packs really do help. It saved us tons of time. We've had games released with it. I think Big Battle 3D uses an asset called Puppet Master from Unity. We butchered it and changed things a little bit, but it works. It was a really fun thing to play around with, and it saved us so much time. So yeah, never be afraid to use them. Just be careful. There's a fine line with it being cohesive and working, and obviously check licensing, etc. as well. Don't just grab everything you can and just throw it in. There's still things to check. Yeah,
it really comes back around to like taking everything that exists and then putting your own spin on it, like using the assets that you have. Then you have more time to work on what's unique about your game idea, your concept, your tech. That makes a lot of sense. All right. I'll try to keep a bit of time for Q&A because I see questions are piling up on there. Obviously, making games is really a thing of passion. We pour our heart and souls into the games. In your experience, what role does it play, and how do you cope with like maybe games that do not work in terms of data? How do you learn to let go of the games that failed, be it in terms of data or even in terms of development? Sometimes we develop a toy, as you mentioned, Gabriel, and it's not fun at all, and so you have to be able to move on. You've put all your passion in it. How do you let go of the concept and move to the next one, Gabriel?
I think because we come from a hyper casual background, which is all about, throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. You sort of learn to let go. Because if you're trying, dozens and dozens of prototypes, even on a monthly basis, most of them will fail. That's just the nature of hyper casual games. So you learn to not to get too attached to your ideas. Does it sometimes hurt when something you really believed in doesn't work out? Of course it does. You need to, and does it take effort to sort of rekindle that flame? Because you need to, like you said, you need to pour your heart and soul into it. It's as much of an art as it is a science, what we're doing. And if you're not investing some passion, if you're not having fun while you're doing it, the end product will show that. It will reflect that. So you need to rekindle that fire with every new project. It's easier said than done, to be honest, but I think it comes from like for me personally, okay, what would be the flip side? What would be the flip side is like working on a game for years, working on a small little part of a big game for years again. That sounds like not that fun in many ways either. And so I kind of embraced it. I embraced this mentality of failing fast, of letting go, and then also getting quickly enthusiastic about something
Yeah.
new. And my job, for example, in my role, it's also trying to sort of be a little bit the salesman, the one who pitches an idea and says why this is the next big thing. Even though, let's be honest, the odds are against us. Like the odds are it will fail, but you still sort of need to restart that engine. And yes, this could be it. Everybody is on board. So yeah, thanks to hyper casual, we sort of learned how to do it. I would definitely recommend for any aspiring developers, don't get too attached to it. You might think you have the most genius idea in the world, and I've been there when I started my game develop. I think many of us have been there where we think, oh,
Oh yeah.
this is brilliant, this will smash it, and then only to realize, no, it really wasn't. So try not to get too attached. Try to get feedback earlier as well, be it on the market by actually releasing something and gathering data, or be it just playtest among peers and friends and family. Try to sort of see, is this really as good as I think it is? And eat some humble pie once in a while, because that's what it is. Like nobody nails it on first try. You will fail, and you will fail often, so you better get comfortable with that.
Connor, how does it feel to throw away code that you spent hours working on and designing?
Yeah, it's bittersweet for sure. So from a dev point of view, we have some great designers that do hype us up. So we're always very thankful for that when starting a new project. And it means that we can really put our soul into the project. We always try and tackle it like this is going to be the next big thing. We always aim for that. So our mindset's always there. So when things do come to a close, unfortunately, I always try and think of the fact that what have we learned from the project? Have we done something new here? Have we tried something new with live ops? Have we used a new system? Have we created some cool tech from it? These things can be reused. We create submodules on every project that get reused down the line, and we test things and we change things. So it's very bittersweet that we might lose the whole project, but our code's still there. It'll be reused by some other team.
Yeah,
It'll save
we'll
someone
copy
else time.
paste it for sure.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So in the long run, I think we live with it because we get to keep some of our cool stuff. Same for art as well, right? Some of the assets get reused on some of our projects, and so nothing really goes to waste. It is sad, but move on. Next one, we aim to be better, and we just crack on.
Makes sense. What's your best piece of advice, both of you, for new developers tuning in today?
I think from my point of view, game jams. Get involved with teams, get that on your portfolio. It's all well and good having your university projects on there and stuff, but if I see 4 portfolios that have the exact same projects and it's all university project, you're not going to stand out. Get some game jams in, do some stuff on your own. Google Play license might be 30 something pounds nowadays for life. Get something released, integrate ads. You might even make some money from it. Who knows? But get that experience in, have fun with it, and sort of just try and make yourself stand out. Essentially, it's a very cliche thing to say, but it really helps if you've got game jams with some really silly games, but you've done some really cool tech in, or you've had a theme which you've done something really unique with. All this screams to me, and if I can see that on your portfolio as well, even better. I know you've worked with a team. I know you can work with designers, artists, etc. So yeah, definitely.
And you finished projects. I feel game jams are super important, and like going to the end goal of projects. Like as programmers, we like to start a lot of side projects, but if you can show that you can go to the finish line, even if the project is not a success, it's a completely different approach. Like success is not even on the equation. Like you finished the job, and that's super important to see.
Totally agree.
Gabriel, any piece of advice for our audience?
To be honest, I don't have much to add. Like Connor said, put your work out there, put yourself out there, right? Like make sure you tick all the boxes, make sure you have your LinkedIn, you have your social media pages, make sure you're out there, people can Google you and find you and contact you, and with your work as well. Like I mentioned earlier, don't try to sort of just tinker on your masterpiece for months and years and in your quiet little room. Try to get feedback and validation as soon as possible. Put your stuff out there. Keep trying, keep putting stuff out there, experiment a bit. And game jams are a really, really great advice. Because for me, it's also when I'm when I'm hiring a junior designer, I'm looking for people who have some experience working in a team, because that's what we do. That's what we talked about it, how closely we work together. And if you can demonstrate, even if you haven't worked at the game company before, but if you can demonstrate that you have worked in a team, be it a game jam, be it some university assignment, then that's a big plus, and it will also help you grow, because it's one of these things. If you're working with others, like it's 2 + 2 = 5, right? Like you are more than the sum of your parts. You will learn from each other. You will inspire each other and create better things that way. So yeah, I definitely
Awesome.
don't don't be hidden. Be
Yeah.
visible.
Benchmark everything, play everything, work, publish your games, and do game jams. And basically you've got everything. All right, I'm going to fast fire some questions from the audience because we've gone a bit overboard on timing. Are there any mobile games in development focusing on esports? Do you think mobile games could exist that would entice players from that side of the market to come over and play something competitively? That's a bit out of my reach. I would say Supercell does a bit on the esports side of things, but for beginner developers, it's too precise of an industry. You need way more work that looks like at first like balancing, gathering a community, making sure you have the tech available. Even multiplayer on mobile is a hard affair. So I would say for our audience today, the Unveiling the Essentials, don't start with the esport multiplayer game. It's going to be a bit hard as a first break. Make game jams first.
100%.
How different is mobile development in comparison to AAA development, or quadruple A, as Ubisoft calls them?
Connor, I think you can take that one from a tech point of view.
From a tech point of view, I mean, I've not worked on a AAA, so it's hard to know, but I have friends who are in that industry, and some of them, message me and we catch up, and they have been working on the same UI element for like 6-7 months. They're on this for the long haul, and some of them enjoy it, some of them are tinkering here and there. I think the biggest thing is, I guess, what you're going to be working on and how quick things can turn around. For me, I love the fact that every day I'll come in and pretty much do something almost different. Whereas I have friends, as I said, who would do the same thing over and over again. They get really good at it, and can specialize. Great, cool. But it's where your heart lies with that. Do you want to sit and do the same thing? Yes, your name will be on a cool credits, whatever, great. But for me, as Gabriel sort of hinted to earlier, I don't think you can really make something fun if you're not having fun. Very cliche, very cringy, whatever. But that's where I sit. So
the bigger the team, the bigger the studio, and the more focused your work will be. Like if you are alone on a game, you'll touch everything and you'll do a bit of everything. But if you're working with 500 people on a specific game, you will work on something very, very specific. What are the best ways to distribute my game? I can answer Google Play. Google Play Store is easiest.
100%.
It's cheap, it's fast, and it's easy. Do it. If you have games, build them for Android and ship them.
Also, just to jump in, from a programming standpoint, if you come to an interview and I've seen this and you've added ads, you've added IAPs, analytics, and you can give me your phone and I can play, not only can I see you've worked with third-party APIs and SDKs, you've published it, you could be making money from it, and also I can then feel it. I can see how polished it is and everything. So it's a really, really key thing, and it's 30 something quid, I think it is, for life. Sell some pizza, whatever, and then you just get it, be done with it. It really helped me getting a job at Kwalee, so can't stress it enough.
Are people designing hybrid casual games from the ground up rather than taking a hyper casual game and adding metagame to it?
That's one of the approaches we see, that you identify a hyper casual game that could be hybridized, which again goes back to all these markers I've talked about, right? There are certain attributes that you can look for in these games that might make them viable to be hybridized. The only thing I would say there, the low-hanging fruits have mostly been picked, so that's going to be a challenge. If most hyper casual games that have not been hybridized yet are not hybridized for a reason. So it's you got to be faster, but you might find some diamond in the rough. So it's a valid strategy.
I feel like it's a lot harder to keep players engaged for a long time with a small core gameplay, and then you have to rely a lot on metagame and building systems around the core idea. And I feel like it's a lot more, it's a lot easier and a lot more fun to design more depth in the gameplay, but more depth in the meta for a simple gameplay. All right, I think that's all the time that we have today. Thanks everyone for attending. Thanks a lot, Connor, Gabriel, for your inputs. Everyone stay tuned for our next topic in the emerging track, Beyond the Code, the A to Z of marketing hit mobile game, hosted by Harry Lang, VP of Marketing at Kwalee. Starting right now. So have a great day, everyone. Enjoy the conference, and thanks, guys, for your time.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Louis.
See ya.
Catch you all soon.
Thank you.